We're on the road through today, and we are here to talk about a new single origin that we have in our lineup. So let's jump into it here. So you've probably seen this come through the shops in the last couple of weeks, a new coffee from Ethiopia. It's a natural process, and it's called the Guji Hebo, or I just call it the Guji for short. I'm not sure on the pronunciation of the second half of it. So kind of the details. This is a coffee from Ethiopia. I've mentioned in some of the other videos about Ethiopian coffee that Ethiopia is like the birthplace of coffee. It's where it has the most genetic diversity. So you get kind of like the purest, truest version of what coffee genetically tastes like. It has spread through the rest of the world to, the kind of Pacific Rim area, Central and South America, but it really natively grows in Ethiopia. So although this coffee is way kind of on the adventurous, kind of unique side of the flavor profile, it's kind of the truest version of coffee also. So this region is the Guji region. There's Yirgacheffe, there's a couple Sidama. These are kind of the regions where the coffee is processed. Because in Ethiopia, there's not a lot of like really formalized coffee farms. A lot of it is just kind of growing in the wild or on small plots. And it's harvested and then taken to washing stations and then usually kind of divided up regionally. So this is from the Guji region. Altitude, we're looking 1,900 to 2,100 meters above sea level. And varieties are Ethiopian heirloom. So once again, that is not a specific variety, rather just like a category of varieties, because there's so many occurring naturally in Ethiopia that they haven't actually been all like quantified yet. So you'll see this a lot with Ethiopian coffee. It's just kind of the variety is like Ethiopian heirloom coffee. And this is a natural process. So we also have the Worka G1. G1 stands for grade 1. There's kind of a grading method in Ethiopia at these washing stations to kind of parse out like grade 1, 2, and 3. And usually their quality is synonymous with a higher grade. So this is also a grade 1. The Worka is a washed process. So that one is very kind of crisp, clean acidity. It's very kind of sparkly. The Guji is a little bit rounder and kind of softer, and it has a little more of a fruit forward flavor profile to it. So rather than being like a citrus fruit, kind of like those sharp, crisp acidities, we're going to get more like mixed berry, kind of plummy flavors with this. So let's jump into the kind of the yellow bar here. Acidity, this coffee's pretty bright. We're keeping it pretty low on its roast level, so we're maintaining a lot of that acid in there. But I think where this coffee shines, like why we selected this one specifically, is I think it's a good companion to the Worka. It's kind of, two very similar coffees, but they also kind of show different sides of what Ethiopian coffee can be. So this coffee is super, I don't know how to describe it exactly, but it's very soft. It's kind of smooth. It has a little more body than a lot of Ethis would have. It's not a heavy-bodied coffee by any means, but it's still a little bit fuller. But it's just super drinkable. Like it has that kind of mixed berry, almost like a pink lemonade kind of flavor profile to it, which sounds pretty adventurous, and it is. But it's balanced out by this really sweet, smooth kind of drinkable profile to it. So it's a really kind of special coffee. And I think as a result, it typically, like these really adventurous coffees are a bit of a gamble in the air pot, just because the acids will take over and they kind of start to taste very tannic after about an hour. But this one I think actually plays pretty well, and it's good across the board. It's really user friendly too. So it makes a delicious pour over. If you really want to get in the weeds and kind of nerdy about it, you can kind of play with your ratio a little bit too. So typically we do like a 1 to 16 to 1 to 17. This coffee is also good kind of in that 1 to 18 range too. But do a pour over it, do a batch brew. It's going to be good. But it does land on the adventurous side. So if you're not into fruity coffee, or if you have customers that are not into fruity coffee, this probably isn't a great fit for them. But if you have someone that's kind of looking to branch out from, the benchmark standard, this could be a really nice, way to get into those more unique flavor profiles without it having kind of that acidic bite that a lot of coffees have. So, so let's jump into the notes real quick. Kind of the primary flavor, or one of the primary flavors, is kind of like sweet cacao note. So like It has this kind of almost like chocolatey quality, but it's pretty subdued. It's certainly there, and it kind of merges with the body of the coffee to kind of create that like soft sweetness to it. But where the flavor really kind of ramps up and is probably the most noticeable is kind of that like mixed berries, pink lemonade kind of flavor range, where you're getting this really nice balance between kind of like sweet berries and kind of something that's a little bit more tannic and punchy. To kind of keep it interesting. And it tastes a lot more like those notes than coffee. Like there's not a lot of like tradition flavor wise in this coffee. But I really, really like this. I'm not always in the mood for, like really kind of fruity, naturally processed coffees, but this has kind of been like the best of both worlds to me. So I've really been enjoying it. I know a couple other people have kind of shared as much also. But yeah, the best way to kind of get a handle on this and kind of start exploring some of these flavors is just to try it. I encourage you to pull out the Stag and do a pour over of it. And as always, kind of give me your thoughts, and customer feedback is always great. But any questions, shoot me a message on Slack, and take care.